This is not a drill. Honor is finally back and their latest smartphone is called the Honor 50. And there is some cause for excitement. Okay, to be clear, Honor didn't really go anywhere, but as a result of the whole Huawei US ban, they lost access to Google's mobile services, and that meant that they couldn't install the Play Store onto any of their smartphones, and no Play Store meant no apps. Well, there were ways that you could work around that involved like some side loading among other things, but I feel like as an end consumer who's going to spend a lot of money on a smartphone, that's just not something that I think everybody would be willing to do. The good news is that since then, Honor was sold to a consortium and have now made a return to the smartphone market with a brand new device, GMS and all included. And that phone is called the Honor 50. And if I may add, what a way to return. On first impressions, this new phone looks absolutely gorgeous. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit biased towards this particular model that we have here because it comes in this gorgeous emerald green colorway. I've always been a fan of the dark green iPhone 11 Pro, and to see Honor do a slightly brighter and glossier version of it for the Honor 50 is really nice to see. But colorway aside, one thing I think you'll agree with me on is that this phone feels very well put together. The finish is nothing short of premium, and it always feels good to hold something like this in your hand. The subtle bump where the frame splits the front and back curved glass is raised just enough that you can get a good grip of the phone, but not too much that it feels poorly designed. Then there's the refreshing contrast between the rounded sides of the phone with the flat top and bottom that I've always been a fan of. I mean, sure, it's not like something radically new that we haven't actually seen before yet, but it's an amalgamation of a lot of very nice design elements that happen to come together very well. Well, except for that camera bump. I don't know whose idea this was, but it kind of feels like it was contributed by, that one person who didn't really do that much during the group assignment. I mean, it's iconic, I'll give them that, but Well, I think the design is definitely up there with the big dogs. The Honor 50's specs reveal the phone's true nature. It's not a high-end flagship. Up front, you're getting a 6.57-inch OLED display that only pushes a resolution of Full HD+. And inside, the phone sports a mid-range 6nm Qualcomm Snapdragon 778G processor that's mated to 8GB of RAM, and in this phone's case, 256GB of internal storage. But that's not to say that those are bad specs. I mean, sure, they're not top of the line, but they're not underwhelming either. The screen, for example, is definitely sharp enough, and it's got a lot of the hallmarks of a good OLED screen. Vibrant colors, good viewing angles, and excellent contrast. Plus, it also supports a refresh rate of 120Hz, so animations and any kind of movement on the screen is butter. I was also impressed with the performance of the mid-range processor during my time with the device. It made the phone smooth and responsive when you're just using it for, smartphone things. But it also has the power to run Genshin Impact and, Asphalt 9 maxed out with playable frame rates. The phone does get uncomfortably hot when running the former, so I would recommend toning down the settings there. But I didn't experience any thermal throttling even after running the game for about 30 minutes. What I was disappointed to find out was the Honor 50's battery capacity. 4,300 mAh was big for 2019, but we're in 2021 now. I would have really liked to see something closer to 5,000 mAh. That said, I wasn't able to fully test the battery life of the Honor 50, so you definitely have to stay tuned for our full review, which will be up on SoyaCincau.com sometime soon. If we're talking about photography though, I I don't have a lot of praise to sing about the Honor 50 here. It features a quad camera setup that's led by the 108 megapixel wide camera. Support also comes in the form of an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth camera, and a 2 megapixel macro shooter. Images in daylight look fine. They're not class leading in any way, but the cameras are definitely functional. Personally, I think that this camera struggles a little bit with highlights, and I think that turning the AI optimization on makes the colors pop a little bit too much. Still, there's more than enough detail here for social media platforms to poorly compress, so I think that it's fine for a mid-range smartphone. In low light, things do get a little dicey. With night mode off, the photos struggle to retain any detail, and every little shake from your hand will find its way into your photos. But if you turn night mode on, a little bit of magenta starts creeping into the highlights, which isn't super great for straight out of camera posting. With a little tweaking though, you could get some usable results. As a whole though, this is probably the aspect where the Honor 50 feels least like a flagship smartphone, but it's not the only compromise that the company made. On this model, you won't find common premium features like stereo speakers or IP68 water resistance. And worst news is that the mono speaker really doesn't get very loud. I'm also not a huge fan of the comparatively cartoony Magic UI skin on top of Android 11, but I'm okay with chalking that down to just personal preference. After all, I'm just glad that this phone has GMS. Which I guess brings us to the final section of this video. Why should you care about the Honor 50? For the uninitiated, Honor in its heyday was one of the only brands that could reliably compete with Xiaomi in the bang-for-buck smartphone market. And that included devices from the affordable mid-range all the way up to the flagship offerings. But since they lost GMS, Xiaomi has just sort of run away with it, and what we ended up with were a whole bunch of phones that looked largely the same with, very iterative updates. The Honor 50 is not like that. Looking at its pricing in China, it looks like this smartphone will be competing directly with devices like the Xiaomi 11T in that sub 2,000 ringgit category. And there is a clear difference in philosophy between the two devices. While the Xiaomi 11T may have a slight edge in the performance department, the Honor 50 blows it out of the water with the build and design. It looks and feels like no other phone does for this price point, and having a completely different philosophy with designing smartphones is generally good because that means it offers the end consumer more choice. But obviously that will depend greatly on one thing, and that is how much Honor will be selling the Honor 50 in Malaysia. That price point is going to be really important because if they can match the 11T, like price point for price point, then we're gonna have an interesting battle on our hands. But as of the recording of this video, I don't know how much the Honor 50 will be priced in Malaysia just yet. So I guess we'll have to wait and find out, but I hope that we don't see them go over the 2,000 ringgit mark. And that's it for this episode of the New Phone Show, and those are my thoughts on the brand new Honor 50. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this smartphone? Let me know in the comment section down below, and thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook. You can also click on the notification bell icon so you don't miss any of our future uploads. But our home on the internet will always be at SoyaCincau.com. Right, this is me, Rory, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.